something that's going to mean that you're going to be thinking about it practically 24/7, right? And that's the problem you want to solve. You don't just, the best entrepreneurs aren't the ones who just decide they're going to fill a niche, because that niche is going to be filled by a lot of other people. What you want to do is figure out what you're uniquely suited for, and it's going to be tied to like what you find most valuable in life, right? Your purpose or your calling, and to build a business around that. At any rate, so that's...
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
How would you like to make your first million? Today we have Mark with us. Mark Divine is a retired U.S. Navy SEAL commander, entrepreneur, and founder of Unbeatable Mind, a New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestselling author. He teaches leadership, mental toughness, and resilience to executive, high athletes, and high performers worldwide. So, Mark, tell us, what are the 5 steps you recommend entrepreneurs in order to make the first million?
That's a great question. Step 1 is to really ask yourself if being an entrepreneur is the right thing for you, right? Entrepreneurs are a very unique breed. And I've seen a lot of people who had no business being in entrepreneurship waste a lot of time and have a lot of aggravation because they just didn't have the right personality for it. It's very different than the mindset. You can make a lot of money selling your time and services and skills, especially in things like finance and creative arts and whatnot. So if you think entrepreneurship is the only way to make $1 million, you got to, question that thought. So that's number 1. Are you right to be an entrepreneur? Are you willing to work the extraordinary long hours? Are you willing to shoulder the entire burden unless you have a great partner? And even sometimes partnering is a challenging situation. That would be like step 2. And do you have the passion for something that's going to mean that you're going to be thinking about it practically 24/7, right? And that's the problem you want to solve. You don't just, the best entrepreneurs aren't the ones who just decide they're going to fill a niche, because that niche is going to be filled by a lot of other people. What you want to do is figure out what you're uniquely suited for, and it's going to be tied to like what you find most valuable in life, right? Your purpose or your calling, and to build a business around that. At any rate, so that's step 1. Step 2 would be really like framing up the problem and what your perceived solution is. And here's where entrepreneurs like often kind of fail, is that they get fixed on their solution as being the right solution. And I guarantee you, and I'm sure you've heard this quite a bit, Harry, is like very rarely is the winning solution or offer that's brought to market that succeeds what was originally intended. There's multiple pivots and failures along the way. So, but you got to start somewhere. So start with a good enough idea, put it out there, but be willing to iterate and change really quickly, especially in this age of AI. And number 3 is you have to determine now whether you're going to go it alone or whether you need some partners. And I would say the most successful businesses and those that get to the $1 million the fastest and then become 10, 50, 100, even $1 billion company, they have either a very strong partnership or a team, right? A founding team. And this requires that you really be very, very cautious and thoughtful in who you bring onto your team, or maybe you're joining someone else's team, to make sure that you align on the vision and values and your characters are copacetic. And because I've had it, and most entrepreneurs have had kind of gnarly fallouts, and they can be very growthful, but if you can avoid it, you'll get there faster without that pain, right? So that's number 3. Number 4 is, starting a business requires capital, right? I get that with AI and the internet, that barrier has been, getting smaller and smaller. And there are tons of examples of people who are starting AI businesses with very little capital. But generally speaking, especially if there's any type of product involved, such as a consumer goods product or hardware or anything really, it's going to require capital. And so you got to ask yourself, where's that capital going to come from? If you're going to go out and ask other people for money, then the idea has to be extremely solid. You have to have a solid plan, and you have to be investable. But also, ideally, you'd put some of your own skin in the game, right? And if you don't have any skin, then you find a way to bring capital into the company, and maybe use credit cards. And I certainly have maxed out everything before starting businesses. So you're going to have to figure out how to raise money. And in the early months, you may feel like your job as the founder is raising money, because it is. Because without the money, you don't get from plan to market. And then number 5 is building the business so it's more than just you as a personality. And that means as quickly as you can to develop processes and systems, so that we had, like in the SEALs, we had a saying that 2 is 1 and 1 is none, right? So that if you or your partner or partners, get sick or something happens or you have a fallout and one of you goes away, well, you don't take half the business, of knowledge and process, of getting things done with that. So you want to very quickly set up systems and processes that then allow the business to run not personality dependent, right? So that then you can focus on working on the business instead of only in it. So those are my 5 tips. I hope they are useful.
They're brilliant, especially Mark, this one that you just shared. Out of the 500 millionaires we interviewed in this podcast, no one has come yet to say, hey, Harry, I invented this product and exactly how I invented, I sold it and I become a multimillionaire. Nobody has shared this story yet. It's exactly like you described. A lot of pivots, a lot of from the initial idea until the final product market fit. Because let's face it, entrepreneurs, they design a product thinking the problem that they want to solve, but at the end of the day, it's the marketplace who decide how much they're gonna pay and how they're gonna pay for the products, and so the iteration continues, right? Mark, my next question is, what lessons from the military have you leveraged in your entrepreneurial careers? Because there are a lot of principles that, when it comes from leadership, mission first, there are a lot of the lessons that you as in the military, you can be used in your career as an entrepreneur. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Sure, absolutely. And I'll just hit on a few that come to mind. But I was in the Navy SEAL team, so I retired as a commander in 2011. And we call it the SEAL teams for a reason, because it's a team. So what I learned in the SEALs was how to be really an exceptional teammate. And I found in the business world that is hard, right? And my first business was a microbrewery restaurant in Coronado, California, called the Coronado Brewing Company. And my partners, who were also my brothers-in-law, they weren't good teammates. And I was a little bit blind because I was just coming off of active duty in the SEALs, and I had an expectation, based upon my experience in the SEALs, that a partnership, there would be that kind of like trust and follow through and accountability with this team, and it just simply wasn't there. And so I learned 2 things there. One is the power of having an exceptional team by your side, where you all have the trust and respect and transparency, right? And the best companies develop that teamwork. And there's different models and systems. Like I love the meritocracy system of Ray Dalio, and the growth company, deliberately development organization kind of model, where everyone comes together and develops that kind of real intimate trust. And that's what we had in the SEALs. But secondarily, that like I said in the opening, be careful, because a team will fall to its lowest common denominator, meaning the most negative person, the guy or person who's blocking action with a smile on their face, or who's backstabbing people or gossiping. If you just have one person on your team, I mean on your executive team or whatever your functional team is, then the entire team will drop its energy and its output and its attitude to that level of that individual. And so a lot of this is why employee engagement hovers around 30% or less, because there's a lot of those people in organizations, and we don't have a mechanism. The leaders don't really have a mechanism to identify it or route it out, or they're too politically correct, or they're worried about, some sort of, DEI issue, because maybe that person is a minority or a protected class. And suddenly the team becomes radically dysfunctional and toxic. So that's a big problem. And you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. Another thing I learned in the SEALs is that the outcome that you're looking for doesn't have to be like a fixed target. Like we talked about earlier, you don't know exactly in 10 years what your business will look like. You just have to know that you're going to be successful. And that along the way are going to be a ton of obstacles. And those obstacles are your opportunity, right? Because they're going to show you the way forward. They're going to show you what's not working so that you can solve the problem to figure out what will work, right, for the marketplace. Because the economy and the market get the primary votes. So you tend to look at obstacles and challenges as opportunities, and you get excited about them, right? So in the SEALs, we knew that on any given mission, like if you had 5 major inflection points, insertion, time on target, extraction, blah, 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 that you're going to have 5 things that at least 2 of those 5 things, something's going to go really wrong. And so we would end up visualizing what could go wrong, and we would mentalize the workaround, and so that we were ready for it when and if it occurred. And when it occurred, it didn't destabilize us or cripple us or cause us to quit like it does for a lot of entrepreneurs or companies. We just worked our way around the problem because we had already mentalized it. We had already seen it in our mind, and we were expecting it. That I learned in the SEALs. The last thing I'll say is, and this is very germane for this kind of VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous age of acceleration and exponential technology and AI, is I learned how to be very agile, to move fast. And we call it failing forward fast and operating with a 80% good enough plan, right? So our planning cycle in the SEALs was like back of the napkin, let's go, right? Sometimes it's minutes up to hours as opposed to like weeks or months that a typical corporation has for a planning cycle. Having a month-long planning cycle these days is silly, right? Because, by the time that month is up, the world's already changed. It used to be quarterly planning or annual planning. That's silly. Now quarterly planning seems silly, right, Harry? So it's like you need to learn how to plan on the fly and activate what we call the OODA loop. And that is to observe how things are going, to orient to it, to make a new decision, to act on that decision. And in that action, now you get right back into observation. And then you orient yourself to what you observe, the response to the market has to your action. You make a new decision, and then you act. So that OODA loop, you try to make that very fast so that you're planning on the fly, you're executing, you're adjusting the plan, you're iterating, and you get faster and faster at doing that. And you become very agile in that regard.
So then let's talk about teams, because the startups that we help, right? When they have these products that they're just starting up, right? I always tell them, guys, it's not even about the products at this stage. It's about the team. It's about you guys, right? And what happened, Mark, that correct me if I'm wrong, in the Navy SEALs, you guys have a comprehensive selection process before you guys actually make it. And in fact, not too many people make it, right? So, and it doesn't matter. Some people can be the best shooter of everybody, and this guy doesn't make it. And another guy could be the most runner, the fastest, and now that guy, he doesn't make it either. And At the end of the day, where clearly this is detailed training because uh, you can risk the life of your life at a risk, especially when you're on a mission. So, but we have a different. At the end of the day, the what it makes the team of the Navy SEALs so compact and proactive is that this team unit, right, is like one. They all go
Yeah.
together. They all have leadership skills. Anybody can be the leader, regardless that it would be a commander. Everybody can exactly. It's a plan on the fly, and those individuals that actually make it, they are exactly as you described, good team members.
Right.
Okay, they're not the best shooter, but they can shoot. They're not the fastest. They are not the fastest, but they can run. But also, the most important values: help, don't leave a teammate behind, support, help, and be proactive. So that's the values that when you have this kind of training. Uh, these are the guys that pass. But then, Mark, we have in the company that is totally different. The company, somebody comes with a big CV and a big deal. I know how to do this role. And look, my experience. I say, okay, you hire, and they hire the team member just by the skills rather than culture. Okay,
Right.
which is and without the team, the company is the team. Without the team, if you have a toxic culture, you have a toxic team in the C level, this will reflect in the whole company, advisor. So, what message do you have for CEOs, founders out there, bringing people to organizations? Exactly what you said, one person only, especially at the early stage, one person only can diminish the whole performance of the team. But also, if the people there are no culture match, do you think that with training we can fix it? Or if there is no culture match, um, it's better to get rid of the person. Let's suppose, for example, in your team in the Navy, somebody make a mistake and somebody passed that is amazing a few things, but he's doing a little bit of the backstabbing. Do you think that with a little bit of training, this person can change, or
Yeah.
or
So
we
the
need to get rid of, or we need to get rid of it?
depends on the person, and depends on the situation or the screw up, right? The SEALs, we had the luxury of number one, attracting the type of people that could potentially be on the team, right? So the best way of hiring well, the first kind of line of defense is to create an attractive energy that's going to attract the quality and the character of the people you want to work for you. So that way it's like an immediate vetting. It's hard to do, but having a very important mission, stating it very clearly in your marketing and website, having a social impact, right? Those types of things are really, and also how you show up in the world as a company. And then, of course, the SEALs have a 9-month process, and it's very rigorous, and only 10% of the individuals who show up at the front door make it through. And as you stated, that you don't have to be the fastest, biggest, fastest, or strongest, or most skilled in any one area, but you have to be good in all areas. And then the master skill is to check your ego at the door and to be a great teammate, right? So they're really testing for humility, which is a master leadership skill, whether you're a officer or enlisted. And so the people who can demonstrate that to the instructors, who, after all, are selecting for their next teammate, because the instructors aren't permanent. They're cycling through on a 2 to 3 year tour, and then they go back into the SEAL teams, and students that they put through training are going to actually be on their teams. And so they have a very personal commitment to selecting the right teammate for themselves as well. Now, all that sounds very good, and I've had this conversation with other CEOs, and they're like, well, how do we can't do that. I can't put someone through a 9-month training program, to see if they're the right stuff. And I said, well, there are good examples of this. So assuming you have that attractive quality, like let's use Google for an example. once Google kind of came on the map and people understood what they were and this, technology and the internet and search, and then it attracted, very smart engineers and, people who wanted to be part of that. And it was also very hard. They knew it was hard to get a job there. I had a friend who got hired by YouTube, but he was attracted to it because he was driving in San Francisco and he saw a billboard, and the billboard didn't say anything about Google. It just had a formula on it. And it said, if a formula and a phone number. And he was a math guy. He loved, and he had pulled over and he wrote the formula down and the phone number, and he went home and he spent, 2 days solving the formula. And then when he called the number, it was Google, and he told them the answer and he got an interview. So that's like an example of a gate that you have to go through. Like, I would have looked at that and said, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what the heck that is. There's no way that I would have ever called that number and gotten an interview with Google, but he was the kind of guy they were looking for. So that's kind of like the attractive siren call and sort of a gate. I have clients that I work with over kind of a year-long program to transform their culture into one of a high trust culture. And what we do is we put all the team members through a 2-day training twice a year to make sure they were catching new teammates, which would be akin to like a baby Navy SEAL training. We teach them, we put them in uncomfortable situations like ice baths. We have them do, some physical training and yoga together. We have them do some breathing and visualization together about, what a great team looks like and, what their future vision and mission will look like. And then we put them through like a more challenging little kind of mini crucible where they have to like really check their ego. And what happens here is people really either rise to the occasion or they just like shut down and say, they get angry or, they reveal their character. And so from a perspective of the team and the CEO, you can see very clearly where those negative apples may have slipped onto the team, and you can watch them and try to remediate them, but 9 times out of 10, they don't make it the year, right? So there's another example, right? Is to set up situations and conditions where people have to be, take their masks off. They have to do things that are maybe a little uncomfortable, but everyone does it. And by the way, for this to work, the CEO and the leadership team need to do it as well, right? You all have to participate. So this works usually for smaller companies, and it's not necessarily going to work for a Fortune 500 company. But they will have the bigger the company, the more you can invest in some of those kind of long vetting programs like the SEALs had. So there are companies that have, year-long training programs, and not everybody makes it through, because what they're really looking for is character. And they'll put you through a lot of these different skill trainings like they used to at IBM, or, I was at Accenture, we did this. And you're learning, like a little bit of all the skills, so you get a sense for the culture and the skills. But what they're really looking for is your character. And they want to make sure that they hired well. And not everyone makes it through that. So thinking about it, if you don't have something set up like that, it's way easier to not bring a bad apple on the team to begin with than it is to get rid of a bad apple once they've done a lot of damage already.
And then leadership, when you having a company, right, and you have your team and you have your startup, you start to sell, you start to make some money, right? But now when you go to scale, now this founder and even the team, they have the first challenge because they sign up to, I don't know, to set the product and make some money. Now they realize if they want to scale from 1 million to 5 million, 10 million, they need to become leaders themselves, and they have to develop a leadership in the organization. And this team has to, all of them become leaders, have to let the, like you said, the ego at the door. And the problem with entrepreneurs is even a little bit more complex because we all have ego. I mean, we think that we can do better. That's the main reason we become entrepreneurs in the first place. And now yes, we have that ego, but at the same time, if you want to lead a team and a company to success, to grow, to scale up, uh, that ego has to be left at the door, and it's more challenge. Number one, they didn't sign up to be a leader; they signed up to have a product pivot until they sell it and make some money. That's what they thought that the whole company being entrepreneurs is going to be about. Now they've seen that after they selling 1 million, 2 million, they want to scale to 10. Now they have to become leaders themselves. The whole team have become leaders. So it's the first big challenge that entrepreneurs have, startup founder, in that transition about leadership. Do you think that, so what message do you have for those entrepreneurs that they have this challenge and they didn't realize that they're going to face this challenge? Even for you, Mark, when you sign up for the Navy SEAL, did you knew that you have to become a leader, and do you have to develop leadership into organization and everybody?
Yeah.
Or I think you sign up
No,
for your country, right? You sign up to defend your country, and you didn't know that the that inside that process you have to become a great leader, and
well,
or you knew a little bit.
I specifically wanted the leadership challenge of the SEALs because I was actually a CPA at
Wow.
PricewaterhouseCoopers and then Arthur Andersen for 4 years before I became a SEAL. Got my MBA from Stern School of Business at NYU, became a certified public accountant in New York, and then I joined the SEALs because I really wasn't experiencing any leadership challenge, and I didn't like the cultures of that consulting world. And I thought I just saw a lot of greed and ego and arrogance, and I didn't want to be like that. And so Navy SEALs was kind of a way for me to really cut my teeth in a really challenging environment to become a much better leader, or a leader for that matter. So back to the core question: is an entrepreneur now wants to scale, let's say 1 million to 5 or 10. The key thing, early entrepreneurship, and I say anything under $1 million up to $1 million is early entrepreneurship. Usually you're wearing both the CEO and COO hats, right? Because we can't afford to hire a COO or what in the entrepreneur operating system you call an implementer. So as you want to now scale, so think about this, right? As maybe you have a partner who's better suited to be the COO, the operator, focus on the internal systems, setting things up, running the daily show. That's great. Or maybe that's you. Well, then separate the functions of the CEO, which is going to be outward focused. It's going to be vision. It's going to have a strong hand in business development and public relations and outreach and such, and future ideation, right? Versus the operational day-to-day get things done role. So you want to split those because you can't do both. And if you if you don't have a partnership with one of you fits CEO, one of you fits COO, then you have to have the discussion, because either you're co-CEO and you hire a COO/integrator, or else maybe there's a different role that one of you could take. So that is key. And then that individual will begin to establish those processes that I talked about earlier that will make sure that the company isn't personality dependent. And so it won't be hurt when the next person leaves and takes all the codes with them or all the knowledge with them. You got it all set up in systems so that the company can scale without personalities either damaging it or just through getting in the way. So that would be the role of the COO to help, kind of implement and set all that up. But without the COO role, integrator role, that often gets gun decked, meaning it doesn't get done well. And you could have a real problem as you scale to like 5 or 10 million, where it just falls apart because it's just too reliant on the personalities. And then the third thing is, if leadership is new to you, which it is for most entrepreneurs, and you're moving beyond kind of like the technical, build the product, figure out the marketing, get it to market, right? All that kind of technical stuff. And now it becomes, the team is expanding and now you're becoming a leader. Well, this is a great time to consider a coach or mentor, right? And getting a really good executive coach or joining an organization where you can get coaching is very important because every leader needs a coach to help expose their blind spots and provide feedback and to be a sounding board as you kind of like fumble your way in your early leadership journey.
What is the biggest challenge, Mark, that you have faced coaching entrepreneurs, and how you become that challenge?
That's a great question. I'd say the biggest challenge I have coaching entrepreneurs is around their emotional maturity, especially the guys. It's starting to soften up a little bit. Men are starting to really understand that, trauma work and, emotional processes are really important because, like I said, as a leader, as an entrepreneur and a leader, you really can't grow the organization beyond the level of your own growth. And if you have, trauma-informed things, you're dragging in dropping little hand grenades of, emotional stuff onto your team, by judging them, by projecting, by shaming them, ignoring their emotional issues, not being able to connect with them. Most entrepreneurs trade off performance for connection because they're not connected really with themselves. And I mean, they don't have a very strong emotional awareness and maturity. So my biggest challenge has been to really help entrepreneurs and executives see that emotional intelligence is absolutely critical as a leader, and that the only person who can do that is you, right? And you're not gonna get it by reading the book Emotional Intelligence, right? It takes a lot of work, right? It's uncomfortable, but you've got to get comfortable with that discomfort if you want to truly bring out the best in others. I wrote a book called Staring Down the Wolf, which is all about developing emotionally mature, leadership around these 7 core commitments, which are courage, trust, respect, growth, excellence, resilience, and alignment. Enough said on that. Yeah.
So, Mark, tell us about your book. What is where people can find it? How this process works? If somebody is in love with this conversation, how they can find you? And what is your favorite chapter in your book?
Man, so my website, markdivine.com, Divine, has all my books. I've got 6 books out now. That's easy, and it talks about my coaching. If you want to talk to me about coaching or speaking, my company, Unbeatable Mind, Unbeatable, Unbeatable Mind, MAND.com, has our core training, either for individuals or organizations. And we have a great certification called Unbeatable Mind Coach for coaches, Train the Trainer program. We've got a really powerful community with our digital courses and whatnot, and occasionally we run some events. So unbeatablemindcom is where you could access some of the training that I alluded to around developing resiliency and mental toughness and leadership character, and also learning how to be calm under stress, which we have a lot of problems with these days. My latest book is called Uncommon, although the soft cover is coming out with a different title, The 5 Levels of Consciousness. So that's really about how to develop yourself as a whole person, as both a leader and whatever role you take on life, through physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and spiritual intelligence. So it's really a book about how to develop those multiple intelligences and bring it all together into your daily life.
So, Mike, one thing that I want to point out is about your restaurant experience. I had one restaurant experience also with loss over 200,000 pounds, and my girlfriend that I have back then, it was a total disaster. I was coming from my previous business, which is a property, right? And I opened that restaurant and realized that the operation is more complex, and then you need more teams, right? You need more team members than I'm used to. In the property, I have a small team, a small operation, right? The transaction, for example, if I rent one room, could be 600, could be 700. I rent in one room, and the room is 2 years, 1 year fully rented. In the restaurant, I have to find hundreds and hundreds of clients, and they pay very little, right? To 20 pounds, 30 pounds per person. So the dynamic I relate to your story, because when I start to work in the restaurant and try to make it work, I realized that if you're not really chef or you don't really love, I realized that what I really like is to eat the food, not to cook it.
Right.
So if you're not passionate about uh, that that business and the team is not there, it's gonna be it's really difficult. It's one of the most highest challenge, because restaurant have food costs, it has
Yeah.
teams, it have
Oh,
staff, it have chef, it have customer service, it have uh, so many things. You have to rotate the food. So it's one of the, so when I think that in London, when they asked me, Harry, I want to study an MBA, Master in Business Administration, I'm gonna pay this. I always tell the student, listen, you really want to talk about business, learn about business, open a restaurant in Brick Lane, you will
yeah.
see when I
That was
open my one.
that was my first business, the restaurant
Oh,
microbrewery.
oh
It
yes,
was
this
wow.
is
It's a tough one.
the
Yeah.
this but this is, you get graduated in business after that one, because this restaurant, forget about, yeah. I learned
Yeah,
more
it's
in
tough.
this restaurant failing that in, in more than in all my business combined that actually make
Yeah, I bet.
make money, because when you fail is when you really learn and evaluate, right? And
Right.
and it's what you said. Just as entrepreneur, we always come back in a different form. We retreat, like in the Navy. Sometimes, if it makes sense, it's better to retreat a little bit, reorganize yourself, and then come back,
Come
come
back
back again
stronger.
to
Yeah.
where, yeah. Mark, have been a real pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for your service. Uh,
Yeah, I appreciate
uh,
that, Harry. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you for keep being a leader. Right? I always said that all problem that we have in our society is lack of leadership, right? So even from any small problem that you can find in your community, in the school, even the higher level, the things that create conflict and problems around the world is a lack of leadership. So we need more leaders. Even my organization called it Speakers and Leaders, and everybody want to be speaker, nobody want to be a leader. everybody,
Right.
everybody wants to be
Yeah.
in front of the audience and clap, and that everybody clap at them, and they want to speak and tell the story. And I'm telling them, like, look, in order for you to convey that story, you have to be there for the audience. You have to drop that
Right.
ego. It's not about you, it's about them.
Right.
And
Totally.
once you do this transition, you you will be a speaker. The speaker that is a leader, right? But if you want to speak because you want to be on a stage and people clap at you and take pictures and for the glory, uh, that's you're going to end up maybe being a
Right.
speaker, but you won't make any change, you won't make an impact, you won't make any transformation. So we need to keep developing leaders in the society from all levels, from community to business, right? Because the it's interesting that you choose a path because you needed challenge in terms of leadership, and you said I'm gonna learn from the best school ever, that one of the best ones that ever existed, right? Definitely. And I think that now you can pave the path for other leaders to follow. Leader means serve, right? To serve. So thank you so
Right.
much. And for all
Thank
of you,
you.
follow pleasure. For all of you following the podcast, see you know on next episode of Unstoppable. How brave entrepreneurs like Mark break the world and achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs, that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.